Hey guys, my name is Courtney Gardner, and I am doing my presentation over increasing the minimum wage from its current $7.25 nationwide average to $15 an hour. The articles I looked at, I have one, of course we each had to find two. I have one that looks at the positive aspects of raising the minimum wage, as well as another article that looks at the negative aspects. Okay, so raising the minimum wage, as most people know, is a pretty highly debated topic between the right, which is the Conservative Party, and the left, which is the Liberal political party. I'm pretty sure on the surface, most people who don't really look into politics might think, like, why shouldn't we raise minimum wage $15 an hour? That sounds like a no-brainer. Like, no one would be in poverty then. Everyone would be making good money. I'm going to be looking at this further for my first article, which talks about the conservative argument, and that is the economic argument, basically. So, again, like I said, I'm going to start with the conservative argument regarding the economy, and I want to start by saying I don't own the right to this picture. Okay. So an old saying goes something along the lines of, if you ask 15, I put this in quotes, but I reworded it, so I don't know why I did that. If you ask 5 different economists their opinion, you'll get 5 different responses. However, this is generally not the case when talking about raising the minimum wage from $15 an hour, raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour nationwide. There's a staggering agreement amongst economists regarding minimum wage increase. It's a nearly universal agreement that raising the minimum wage is a bad idea and it doesn't help. And in fact, only around 6% of economists in 2020 would make the argument that raising the minimum wage $15 an hour would be good for the American economy or effective in reducing poverty. So this isn't to say that we shouldn't do anything about reducing poverty in America. It's just that this is not the way and that there are better ways to do it. So the article I looked at, it talks about in 2014 was when minimum wage was increased nationwide, which means across all 50 states, to the $7.25 we know today. So that increase in minimum wage costed America 1.4 million jobs. That means 1.4 million jobs were destroyed when this happened. And you might be asking yourself why. So a pretty basic lesson in economics is that when the price of something goes up, less people are going to buy less of it. So let's look at, generally fast food restaurants and coffee shops and grocery stores are going to pay their workers a minimum wage or pretty close to it, at least to start. And say that the price of cheeseburgers has to go up significantly because now every restaurant, every McDonald's is paying their workers $15. This is going to result in people buying a lot less cheeseburgers. They have to pay a lot more to make up for this. And you can easily expect a reduction in sales. This same law of demand, as it's called, also affects the market for low-skilled workers. Raising minimum wage. Sorry, my kids were yelling at each other. Raising minimum wage equates to, if a worker is only contributing, say, close to $7.25 an hour in revenue, then an employer is obviously not going to want to keep them. And a study has shown that raising minimum wage to $15 an hour would result in about $15,000 in loss per employee that they have to pay that much money to. So to make up for that, they're either going to fire some of their employees and cut the hours for a lot of the ones that they do keep. And these job cuts, they're going to go for the people who need those jobs the most. They're going to go to what is, referred to as lower skilled workers, people without higher education and people without experience, people who need the experience so they can get their next job and get it, and grow. So that's who's going to go for it first. Okay, so even just an increase to $10 an hour, right now would result in an estimated loss of 500 million jobs. And another study in 2017 done by Harvard University linked raising minimum wage, and they looked at this in San Francisco, to a sharp increase in the closure, which means restaurants went out of restaurants went out of business because they were forced to raise minimum wage and they could not, their profits were not good enough to keep them in business. So since I'm already at 6 minutes, I'm going to go ahead and jump over to the next argument, or to the other side of the argument. So that is if there's not an economic benefit and it's not going to help the people in poverty because they're going to be the ones to lose their job quicker than someone else. Something else I forgot to talk about was raising minimum wage to $15 an hour for certain jobs would create more competition. So there might be people with more skills and more experience coming out to apply for these jobs now, which would get the job over someone with less experience or less who doesn't have a higher education. Okay, so anyways, jumping back over. So could there be, if there's not an economic benefit for people in poverty, could there be a benefit health-wise? Well, Paul J. Lee would argue that. In his article, Could Raising the Minimum Wage Include Public Health? He said that he claims that, or I guess he looked at a study and quotes it, and that study said that had all states raised their minimum wage by $1 in 2014, they estimated 2,790 fewer low birth weights and 518 fewer neonatal deaths would occur. So that's a pretty big deal. Lee also mentions in a study that a study which finds an increase in minimum wage of 30% would equal to the effect for someone who has depression taking an antidepressant. So I guess the saying money doesn't buy happiness must not be true. To end the article, Lee, I took a pretty big quote out, and Lee states that increasing wages can improve psychological well-being and job satisfaction. And this would help to decrease in unhealthy habits such as smoking and overeating, which would cause less weight gain. And of course, if people are making more money, they will no longer need or be eligible for food stamps or WIC, which is Women, Infant, and Children. It's a program that gives pregnant women food while they're pregnant and while they're breastfeeding as well, and then also helps them get formula. And they show a state-by-state variation in minimum wages with increase in general increases health. So that is the argument for raising. And of course, healthier citizens is a great argument to make. However, Lee states in their article that these findings do leave out a lot of variables, and I would spectate that a variable that they leave out is inflation, how much the cost of living is going to go up if you raise minimum wage. And I would spectate that these findings are more or less looking at had they not really increased the minimum wage, but had they just given people who are in poverty $15 an hour paying jobs in the exact same way that our economy is now. So that would be my speculation. I can't prove that because Lee does not specifically state what variables are left out. So if economists do not agree that raising minimum wage is a good idea, what should they do? Like, do they have a decent solution. They do. They are on the same subject as this as well, which is a pretty rare thing. Economists do not typically agree. So instead of raising minimum wage, they argue for Earned Income Tax Credit, EITC. Under the current EITC guidelines, employees with 2 children get a $40 subsidy to their earnings, which results in an extra $5,548 per year. This is basically giving them a tax break to give them more money in their pockets because they have kids, so they contribute less to taxes. And the EITC has been growing generously in tax deductions for these families, and studies suggest that they will continue to do so. So that's my summary of these 2 articles, and thank you guys for listening. I'm sorry that this video is a little bit longer than it was supposed to be.